at Goodman
It's a
Hoops.
long one.
It is a long one. Stick with me, Jacob. High Point head coach Alan Huss, a Creighton alum, is finalizing a deal to rejoin Greg McDermott's staff immediately as the coach in waiting. Sources told the Field at 68. McDermott, 60, hasn't put an exact timeline on his retirement, but sources said that it'll likely be within the next 2 seasons. McDermott has won more than 600 games, blah, 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 blah. We'll skip over that paragraph. The plan is for the 46-year-old Huss to leave his head coaching spot at High Point immediately and return to his alma mater to ease transition once McDermott does decide to retire. The plan allows McDermott to have Huss on staff to ease the transition, allows Huss to be the head coach at his alma mater, and also enables the school to have a plan in place for continuity. And we are now joined by Jacob Padilla. So there you go. There's some good fodder for today's conversation, Jacob.
Yeah, not too often that I've come on as news has broken. Not terribly shocking. It's something that's kind of been rumored, and I believe it's been in the works for a while. And apparently, they got to a point where somebody felt comfortable leaking it to the various national writers.
Yeah. So I mean, there's obvious, what's the top story here that we're probably looking at like 1 or 2 more seasons with Greg McDermott, or that, Creighton just got one of the better mid-major coaches in college basketball to join their staff and then eventually be their next head coach?
Yeah, I think it's probably more the latter, because I mean, we're at that point now where it was kind of year to year with Mac, that conversation, obviously working through the extensions and all that to continue coaching here, but all indications were that we were getting closer to the end for Mac.
Yep.
Now that with the next 2 years puts a bit more of a timeline on it versus is this the year? Is this the year? Is this the year? Could he keep going for even longer with the way that he got it rolling? But the fact that I think Huss was probably always, or at least recently, kind of has risen to the top of that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. I was, at what point do you think it became obvious that he was going to be the next guy?
Yeah, it seemed like for a while there, Darren DeVries was kind of that guy, but he's kind of taken his own path and continued to elevate his own job status over the last few years, and obviously is now at Indiana. And so I think with the success that Huss has had recently, the kind of the fact that he is an alumnus, I think all signs started to kind of point to that way if they were going to hire within his coaching tree, which probably makes sense considering what that tree is, and all the success that the various assistants that have come through his program are having with their own programs across the country. So Huss is a guy that's proven he can recruit at Creighton at a high level. He was one of their key recruiters during his time here. And now he's gone out and shown that he can run his own program and put together teams that can compete in their league and quickly turn High Point into one of the better mid-majors in the country. So the interesting thing is the fact that they do work out the step away from the head coach to be the coach in waiting, potentially for 2 more years, according to Goodman's report. That certainly isn't. I mean, with the money going around now and everything that's involved with coaching, Creighton can certainly make it worth it for him. But it is interesting. You'd rather have him as a coach of waiting in staff rather than continuing to run his own program. And I guess the danger there is if you wait and let him continue coaching there's a chance that somebody else could swoop in he could kind of hit the degrees fast track to a power program that would be much harder to lure him away from. So I think that's kind of all the calculations that Creighton was working through once they decided, Mac and with the athletic administration support decided like, hey, this should be the guy, and let's do what we need to make sure that plays out that way.
Like you said, it's a really unique situation, just given that usually, the coach in waiting stuff, a guy will sort of just behind the scenes, kind of identify it himself. And like you said, over the last couple of years, Huss has sort of risen to the top of that, especially with the success in the last 2 years at High Point. But getting to see this play out where, he's actually on the staff and everyone knows that he is the coach in waiting. Like that is, that's a little bit different and unique. And Creighton has a baseball coach in waiting situation, and then the volleyball, situation that sort of unfolded on, surprisingly on Sunday night is sort of fascinating as well. So I guess Creighton's not necessarily like new to all this, and it kind of stays in the family, I suppose, if you will. But it is it's interesting the way that they sort of chose to do it. Locking that down, like you said before, he could potentially grow into, take another great opportunity. He must have thought, Jacob, like, this is too good. I eventually want this job, so why not just lock this in now?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's kind of what it is. Both sides decided, hey, this is where we want to go. Again, he went here, so you've got the kind of the natural tie there, and assuming that based on the way it's worked out, he enjoyed his time working for McDermott, and is perfectly happy sliding back into that role here for however long McDermott continues to coach. So that's where it is a little different than the baseball situation. But you're right that it is something that Creighton seems to really be embracing, which is interesting because it's not. I mean, a lot of times you see the kind of coach in waiting, and it doesn't work out super great. Either the coach ends up coaching longer than expected, and the coach or the assistant gets tired of waiting and gets a job somewhere else, or maybe it doesn't turn out great once the transition actually happens. But I think, like again with baseball, there wasn't really like Ed Service, Mark Kingston. They're two different people. They didn't really overlap outside of some various competition over the years. Like McDermott and Huss, they've worked together. They know that dynamic already. So it's just kind of a seamless fit throwing him back in there. And, so yeah, it's an interesting. Again, just kind of points to where Creighton is now. It's a big time power move. Like Huss is one of the names that I assuming a lot of programs considered with their coaching openings this cycle. I know a lot of fans have thrown his names out for multiple jobs, and the fact that I think that he wasn't I guess more heavily discussed in some of those was an indication that this has been in the works, and kind of makes sense why things were so quiet on his front when he was such a hot name going down the stretch of the season.
You were around the entire time that Huss was an assistant here, and I always found him, quite the joy to talk to. And I think him and Mac approach things in similar ways, like you just said, and they're a lot like each other, a lot alike to each other. But I guess when you think of Huss as a coach, what stands out first? Now we haven't been close over the last couple of years at High Point, and an assistant coach and head coach is a different thing. But when you think about Alan Huss as a basketball coach, what sort of comes to mind first?
Yeah, just a guy that has a lot of connections. Obviously, he kind of started in the basketball like prep powerhouse world with La Lumiere, and put in some time there, and has coached at multiple levels, mid-major, high major, obviously with Creighton, and a guy that can really recruit. And he at High Point is able to put together teams that quickly put together teams in multiple ways that were able to kind of run through that league and make the tournament. So that's first and foremost, I think, where he's established himself as a big name, is his ability to recruit. And that will continue to be. I know everybody talks about, you don't really recruit anymore. It's just the players go to the highest bidder, and there's some of that, but also the ability to identify and connect and recruit. That's still important. Like, that's how you put together the best teams, as opposed to just getting the biggest name players. Is identifying, all right, this guy is a great fit for us, and kind of selling why your program is a better fit than others. So I can't say I studied how his teams played at
right.
High Point too closely. I kind of followed their success. So we'll see kind of how he views things differently than McDermott in terms of playing style and some of the things that he wants to do. But also he's had a front row seat and will continue to how McDermott does things, and have to believe that he'll continue to kind of pick his brain and really lock in on the things that work here and keep a lot of that stuff as he makes it his own program.
We got a comment here from Debo on the YouTube who says, "I don't want Matt going out before he gets the national recognition he deserves." And I was just going to ask you, we were going to talk about like basketball and the roster and things like that. They've been pretty aggressive and competitive in the transfer portal since we last talked. They got Josh Dix, and then they got Dmitrievich, the freshman who they were in on for a long time from overseas. They've been aggressive in putting this roster together. Not that they wouldn't have been, but then, if you're starting to, we're certainly, closer to the end, if not pretty close to the end for Greg McDermott. Like, now, does it change the perspective of what these next couple teams, like, does it up the urgency at all? Obviously, there's always a really high urgency for them to win, but like, I would imagine that Mac is going to try and go out and put some of the best rosters he could possibly put together before he ends up leaving.
Yeah, I think the kind of the transfer portal haul this cycle kind of indicated to the fact that they're kind of going all in as much as they can. They're willing to they've garnered the support necessary to go out and basically get whoever they wanted, within reason, obviously, because like a guy like Josh Dix, he wasn't a massive like positional need, but they were willing to take to do what it took to get him anyway, and to just round out the roster and get the best players that they can that fit the program. So that's one where you kind of you needed to get your big man, you needed to get your point guard after losing the guys did last year, and the fact that they're able to go get Dix as well just indicated that, all right, they're all in here. They're putting together the best team they can. Obviously, like you said, kind of reaching the end here for McDermott. It's interesting. I think he's very well respected within the coaching and college basketball world. It's just you don't win a you don't win a national.
You don't get to be to the top of the sport without going to like multiple Final Fours. Yeah.
And obviously the Big still hasn't gotten the Big East tournament. Kind of the Big East regular season that he got was split and at a weird time, and so you don't have any of those kind of top end things on the resume that maybe kind of the casual basketball fan would gravitate to. But outside of that, you really look at what he's done. I think it's pretty clear why he's so, and the way his team's played. Matt DeMarinis and I just so many times over the last couple of years over the podcast is just the way Creighton has gotten so good at what they do.
Yeah.
And that's entirely on coaching, is finding guys that can do exactly what you want, coaching them up, and to consistently produce and play the way you need to in order to have success. And obviously the offensive acumen is what often gets referred to nationally and things like that. But his evolution as a defensive coach,
that's crazy.
The way he's embraced input from his assistants, like that's the kind of the defensive shifts over the years. A lot of that, like he puts a lot on his assistant coaches, which is probably why so many of them go on to have success as head coaches. But that's the kind of coach he is, where he really relies on his assistants to help him get better and to put the best product on the floor as possible. So that's kind of, I think the Greg McDermott legacy is just kind of everything that he's done, what he's elevated Creighton to. And I think in due time, he'll get a lot of credit for that. It's just, he's not ever going to enter the best coaches in the country conversation nationally because of, like we talked about, the lack of hardware.
I think the biggest thing now, as you look at the evolution of it over the last several years, they're not like at first, and especially when they joined the Big East or even when they were in the Valley, it was like they were attached to sort of a style, right? Like a style of basketball. Not that they're not anymore. Like you said, they're known for their sort of offensive prowess, but like more so than a tempo or, how many threes they want to shoot or whatever it might be. It's more like fundamental things like focus and execution and like, really honed in on the detail stuff. And so they've gotten away, like the most impressive thing is, like you said, they've been able to win in so many different styles. And like you said, we're not sure what Huss is going to bring to the table in that category. And I think that's a big part of the learning curve over the next couple of years to, go through that and adjust and figure out what team you have. I mean, it's fascinating, but there's a lot of different angles to this story, Jacob, as you know.
Yeah, and heck of a week for Creighton athletics as a whole. Creighton's not quite done yet. I mean, we're seeing they're still active in the transfer portal. The roster isn't entirely set yet. We'll see. Can they add one more piece that might be in the mix to be a rotation player either this year or over the long haul? How do they kind of handle the last few roster spots here? Still a lot to do, but this was kind of the big one that was hanging out there that they need to get it sorted at some point here, because you want to be operating at full strength as you finish, you go through the portal and kind of turn over every rock to put together the best team you can. So now you've got that out of the way. I think hopefully we'll be getting official word here soon. I think somebody mentioned within the next day or two. So that would be nice. And now it's all in on kind of finishing out this roster and then heading into the offseason.
All right, Jacob. It's a busy day all of a sudden. We'll let you get to it. Thanks for being on with us for a few minutes, and good to talk as always. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.
That is Jacob Padilla. Great stuff on the breaking news that Creighton has a head coach in waiting. What sport?
Again.
What sport, Connor? Basketball, men's basketball. Let's open things up and discuss this on the other side. We got some room for you guys if you'd like to comment and give us a call at 402-951-1620. There's already a lot to talk about with the basketball team and sort of the roster and how it looks, and now maybe the conversation becomes a little bit different. So we want to hear from you guys on the show, as it is being widely reported, not official yet, but widely enough reported where it's happening, that Alan Huss is leaving High Point. He was the head coach at High Point for the last 2 years. He's leaving that post effective immediately and will be on staff at Creighton next year with the tag of coach in waiting. We can talk about the timeline and all those things. So we'll open it up for you guys, and we'll discuss more next here on the Connor Happer Show on 1620 The Zone.